Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our webinar for today covering membership renewal options. I'm Samantha. I'm the Director of Education with ClubExpress. I am joined by my favorite teammate, Devin, and we're going to get started on our topic in just a moment here. But first, a little bit of housekeeping. All of your microphones are muted, so we ask that you enter your questions into the Q&A as opposed to the chat. That helps us organize the questions a little bit better. We do have a lot of participants on this particular session, so we want to make sure that we can get to all of those questions. And of course, we'll have time for Q&A at the end of our session as well. A recording of this webinar will be on our YouTube channel within a few days. And of course, we do ask that you keep your questions on topic so that we're able to address everyone's questions. Where's the recording, you ask? Well, if you hop over to YouTube and search for clubexpress.com, if you have not subscribed to our channel already, you can find this webinar as well as all of our previous webinars and any of our tutorials. We do recommend that you subscribe for notifications when we post a new tutorial or when we post a recording. And as far as any future webinars, we recommend that you watch out for our upcoming newsletter. We haven't sent out a newsletter in a little bit, and we're making a reprisal. It's where you're going to be able to find a lot of education tips, a lot of information about our upcoming webinars. And of course, you can pop into clubexpress.com/calendar to find all of those upcoming webinars and register for them in advance so that you get them on your calendar. And of course, if you are an existing ClubExpress customer and you have things to say about us, we would love to hear them. If you go to clubexpress.com/reviews, you can leave us a review on any of the websites that you see listed. Your reviews help us know what you love, what you don't love, and they help future customers determine if we're a good match for them. So we would appreciate it if you would take just a moment to leave us a review. In today's demonstration, we're going to be highlighting not only a new renewal option that we added in our most recent version release, but also recap some of the additional renewal options that you have available to your organization. Now, what we aren't going to cover in this session would be renewing a member, the act of actually going into the People Manager and renewing a member. We aren't going to cover configuring the renewal or sign up wizard. We're going to focus on your renewal settings. So there are a few questions that we're going to be answering in today's demo. What are your options for single date renewals, or how can you set up rolling renewals? We do give organizations both options. So we'll talk about each of the options and what they'd mean for you. How many renewal notices should you be sending? What happens with expired memberships when someone's membership is fully expired? How will members pay their renewal fees? And what will prospective members see when they join? And how can they make determinations about the type of renewal option that they'd like to have going forward? So without further ado, let me go ahead and swap some things around here. All right. Everyone should be seeing the Northwest Balloon Club. This is one of our demo clubs. I'm currently signed in as Martin Smith. I'm an administrator with full access to the back end of the website. I'm going to pop into the control panel. And basically, I'm going to be living in the People tab today, specifically in renewal and expiration settings. We're going to take a look at a couple of other spaces on your website, and there are a few things that we aren't able to show or demo on our demo club. So we have a couple of screenshots that I'm going to share with you so that you have context and you know exactly what you're going to see depending on the selections that you've made. So the first thing that we want to talk about would be, how do you set up single date renewals and what are your options for single date renewals? So I'm in our renewal and expiration settings in our People tab. And the first thing that you determine is if you're using rolling renewals or a single date renewal system. Now, a lot of organizations operate with single date renewals and switch to rolling renewals because they're able to with the ClubExpress. Now, apart from that, if you'd like to continue using single date renewals, we have a lot of options here. You first configure your start date, and then you determine what excuse me, if you want a grace period, and if you want to enforce continuous membership. Well, let's talk about each of those options. A grace period just means if your membership starts, as we've placed here, January 1st, if you allow new members, prospective members, to join just a little bit early and get an extra month or two out of their membership that first year that they join, you can configure that grace period and bake that into your memberships. So let's say that your grace period is 1 month for a January 1st start. That means that anyone can join during the month of December of the prior year, and they'd still be able to take advantage of that extra month, and their renewal date would still be January 1st. They'd get a free month out of it. If someone were to attempt to join outside of that grace period, so if someone wanted to join in November or in October, they would be paying for the duration of that membership for the rest of that year. And we'll talk about some additional options related to that. Underneath that, we have continuous membership. So whether or not you want to force members to renew previously expired years before they can continue. So if you have members who maybe stopped renewing their memberships in 2020 and they've taken a break and maybe now they want to come back a few years later, they'd have to pay for the previous 4 years of membership in order to be current and be an active member this year. All of those are organization-specific options. We can leave them as no if you just have a really simple single-date renewal system where you don't even have a grace period. You just have one date. That's the only date that members can sign up. These options can be as complicated or as simple as you need them to be. And then, do you want to enable proration? That just allows you to prorate memberships on a daily basis based on when the member's joining, if they're joining outside of that grace period and outside of your renewal cycle. So, single date renewals are an option for organizations who like to see all of the funds that they're going to be working with for an entire year if they want to enforce membership to happen on a single day. And rolling renewals are just another way to handle renewals. It's definitely easier to kind of spread that out over the course of the year as opposed to managing renewals and questions and new members all at the same time. So, an additional option that you have would be rolling renewals. Now, with rolling renewals, there are a couple of additional features here. So with rolling renewals, you're allowing members to join and renew whenever they'd like. There isn't a single date that they have to renew on, and there isn't any proration involved. When you're setting rolling renewals, you have to choose what happens when a member doesn't necessarily pay or renew on the exact same day every year. And you have 3 options. The first is when the member renews, their new expiration date is the date that they actually renew. The second option is that the expiration date is based on the date that they paid. Now, those 2 dates might seem like they're the same date or they're going to be the same date, but keep in mind that a member can go in and go through the process of renewing their membership, but that membership isn't fully renewed until they've paid, whether that's paying online with PayPal, with a credit card, or whether that's mailing in a check or cash. So when you have members who are renewing, keep in mind if their expiration date is going to be based on the date they renew, it's the date that they go ahead and click that renewal button, the date that they've paid, the date that their payment has been applied, whether that's the date that they paid themselves or the date that the administrator applies their payment. The last option is that the new expiration date is based on the old expiration date. So whether or not they renew or pay after their original expiration date, their old expiration date is always going to dictate their new one. So let's take a quick example. Let's say that the expiration date or the date that someone has joined an organization is April 24th, 2024. If I decide in 2025 that I'm not going to renew my membership right away. Maybe I've forgotten about it. And now it's May 12th when I finally renew my membership. Or maybe I've forgotten for a really long time. And now it's December 12th and I've let 7 months of my membership go. What could happen is that my expiration date would be based on my old expiration date. So rather than having a new membership cycle that would start in December when I finally renewed, it would be based on my original join expiration date. And I'm using 12-month durations in these examples. You may have other durations and it would apply the exact same way. So if you have a 6-month expiration date, a 12-month expiration date, a 24-month expiration date. So those are the two options for handling when renewals happen and how often they're happening at your organization. The next question that we have is how many renewal notices should I really be sending out? We give you a lot of options. And on our demo clubs and in a lot of demonstrations, you'll see that we always have 3 notices being sent out. And we sometimes have this last notice listed as a negative number. So the way that these are configured, we're sending 3 renewal notices. The first notice, the second notice, and the third notice, all a certain number of days before expiration. We do like to send that last notice out a negative number of days, meaning it's 10 days after the membership has expired. That gives all of your members that sort of last effort to get them to renew their membership. And the the media that we used is email or regular mail if there isn't an email that's been specified with your organization. We always recommend that you collect email addresses from your members. It certainly makes communication easier, and of course, it helps you maintain your organization online. Other options that you have for renewal notices, you could decide not to send any notices at all and turn them off for everyone. There are ways that you're able to turn off renewal notices for specific subgroups or specific member types, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. We can send 1, 2, or 3 renewal notices. Now, keep in mind, if you choose to only send 1 or 2 notices, you won't get that bonus option of being able to send that third notice after the fact. You'll only get that option if you're sending 3 renewal notices. So again, we really love that as a way to give that last ditch effort to get your members to renew. And the last option is to set a renewal flag only without notices being sent out. The renewal flag will appear right at the top next to all of my member profile information. You'll see that right now I have that payments icon. The renewal icon sits right next to it. It's pretty obvious, and it also comes with a quick pop-up that lets the member know that their membership is expiring. The renewal flag is that little icon, and it offers the member quick navigation to renewal the same way that clicking that $ takes you right to the payment page. Clicking the renewal icon takes the member right to their renewal screen. Underneath that, we have our auto renewal notices. So this is one of the new features that we added in our most recent update. We give you the opportunity to send out a notice that a member's membership is about to auto renew, as opposed to additional notifications that would go out when a member's membership is renewed. So these renewal notices this renewal notice gives you an opportunity to forewarn members when their auto renewed membership is set to expire. And we are going to talk about auto renewing memberships in just a moment. But first, I want to take just a quick detour to talk about renewal notices and to talk about how you might turn them off for any specific group on your site, specifically organizations who have subgroups and want them turned off for specific subgroups, or you want them turned off for a specific member type. So I'm going to cancel out of this screen, and I'm Back in the control panel, first, we're going to pop into our communications tab, our familiar system emails. This is where our renewal notices are going to live. And my favorite hack is just Control F, and I'm going to type in renewal. And I can see a couple of my renewal notices at the top. We have my auto renewal notice and notification. And then more towards the bottom, I have a handful of other renewal notices. Here are my 3 renewal notices: first, second, and third and final notice, and renewal confirmations, depending on whether the member or administrator has gone through and renewed. So there are a few different system emails that you want to keep in mind if you are overhauling your renewal or if you're getting renewals set up for the first time. Now, let's take a look at where you might shut off renewal notices for a specific group. First, for organizations with subgroups, in your club tab, and remember that your tab may be labeled differently depending on your organization type. It's the tab right before communications, right after money. I'll go ahead and click the club tab. In organization data, if I drill down into any subgroup and my lower level subgroup, I can edit my lower level subgroup, and within my general info for the subgroup, where I'm determining whether or not additions to that subgroup require approval, if I'm choosing members of committees specifically from that subgroup, that's also where I determine whether or not that subgroup gets renewal notices. There may be other chapters, maybe who are small and they handle their renewal notices in person. There could be plenty of reasons why you decide that you want to shut those off. Now, for organizations without subgroups, there are still ways that you can control some of those notices. Back in our control panel, we'll go back to our People tab. Under the Setup section in Member Types, if we take a look at any one of our member types and we edit that member type, we can choose to stop renewal notices as part of that specific member type. So perhaps there are different types of members that you don't want to send notices to, and they're an oddball, and every single one of your member types should. Maybe these are lifetime members, and you don't necessarily want to make the duration of the membership extremely long. You'd rather maybe administrators manage the renewal on behalf of those members. Again, plenty of reasons why you'd want to choose that option. Just know that it is there. Now, let's go back into our control panel. And we'll talk about some of the final settings that you determine. We've already talked about whether you want to set up rolling renewals or single date renewals. We've also talked about our renewal notices and when you might want to send those out, how often you want to send those out. And of course, we've talked about where you're going to edit those notices. Now let's talk about what actually happens when someone's membership expires. So in our first section here, we're choosing when the system fully revokes the member's access to member-only content after their membership has expired. So you might think that this should happen the day their membership expires. You might think that you want to give them even more of a grace period. So if you say the system should expire memberships on the expiration date, that means that the day the membership expires, they lose access to member-only content. If we want to build in a slight delay, we can add in another delay. Now, if you perhaps maybe are sending your third notice out 10 days after the membership expires, maybe you want to also add in a 10-day delay for your expiration for access to the back end of, or excuse me, access to the member-only side of your website. And then last, how you want your members to renew. Now, we're going to talk about auto renewal in just a moment, but this covers any other type of renewal where members are handling renewal themselves. If you want expired members to be able to log in and renew on their own, then you can allow them to do so here. However, if you want more granular control over returning members or renewing members, you have the ability to control that expired members, once the system has fully expired their membership, that they must contact an administrator to renew. Now, if you select that option, what would happen with your delay is after 10 days, when the member signs in, they see a pop-up that says that they have to contact an administrator. Otherwise, expired members can sign in and they're taken right to the renewal wizard, and they aren't able to see any member-only content until they go through the renewal wizard and pay for their renewals. All right, we'll go ahead and cancel out of this. And now we want to talk about how members are going to pay for their renewals. And with that, we'll talk about two options. The first would be members paying for renewals on their own, and the second would be members having auto renewals and auto payments set up for themselves. So for that, we're going to pop into member types, and then we're going to take another look at some screenshots that we have prepared to give you an idea of what your members or how your members are going to end up paying for these memberships. So let's go into one of our member types, and under our renewal dropdown, we have a couple of options here. Now, this demo site is not set up with a merchant account, so we aren't set up to process credit cards on our demo site, which is irrelevant to what you might be learning, but it also explains why you may see additional options that we don't on this particular screen. So let's talk about what we do see, and then we'll talk about the additional options that you'll see on your websites. We can use our default settings for renewal, which would be the settings that we just set up. And it also means that all of the members will be, excuse me, it also means that all of the members will be managing their own renewals, and they're going to be responsible for making that payment, whether it's signing in and putting in their credit card information, or if it's mailing in a check or cash. The other option that we have is automatic renewals. Automatic renewals will allow or will enable the membership to renew automatically a certain number of days before the expiration date. Now, what that does not do is complete payment on behalf of the member. All it does is simply renews the membership. So earlier, we kind of talked about some of those renewal options where perhaps the expiration date and the renewal date, weren't quite lining up. So this is one of those instances where you might renew someone slightly before their expiration date. They can sign in themselves whenever they'd like, and they can go ahead and make that payment. Now, an additional option or several additional options that you have involve not only automatic renewals, but adding in that option for an automatic payment as well. So let's talk about those additional options. And for that, I want to quickly change gears here. All right. So let's talk about the additional options that you may see when you're setting up your member types. So again, this is under the People tab, member types, when you're setting up an individual member type. The first two options that you see in that screenshot will show you our default settings and our automatic renewals. The additional options are automatic renewal, payment required, payment optional, or optional automatic renewal and payment. And it sounds like, they're all slightly the same thing, but they are all quite different. So let's talk about how everyone is going to pay for these. Without automatic payment, it's again the same as everything else. Your members are going to need to either log into your site to complete that payment every year, every 6 months, whenever those membership durations expire, or they'll need to send in a physical payment, whether that's a check or cash. With automatic payment, members are required to save a credit card to their member profile. Those credit cards are encrypted, of course. It's not information that an administrator has access to, and the system charges their saved credit card when that membership is up for renewal. Now, let's talk about what members will see when they're actually signing up for any one of these member types that may include automatic renewals, automatic renewal with a required payment, or with an optional payment. So when your members sign up, we've highlighted for each option what they're going to see and then some quick bullet points for each of those. So under automatic renewal, which is the option right under default, there's no payment that's involved with that. Renewal is automatic. The auto renew option and payment, renewal's automatic, and it requires a saved credit card. And the prospective member sees that notice at the very bottom that the member type auto renews and pays using a saved credit card. The last two options offer optional automatic payment. And so your members, your prospective members, are going to see a checkbox to allow them to enroll in automatic renewal. Now, once they check that box, it tells the system to collect a saved credit card from them. That credit card's saved to their member profile, and the membership then behaves as though it's auto renew and payment. Now, if the member decides not to enroll in automatic renewal and payment, then they're responsible for going in and paying for their membership on their own, however often their membership needs to be renewed. An additional note to keep in mind: if the member decides to enroll in automatic payments and puts in their credit card and saves that, and they later determine that they do not want to continue with automatic payment, that they would like to maybe remove their card, uncheck that box, it isn't something that the member is able to do on behalf of themselves. An administrator would need to sign into their member profile, and the same way that you may update someone's membership type information, you would update whether or not they were enrolled in automatic renewals. And so we'll give you just a quick idea of where that is. Let me go ahead and switch gears one more time here. We'll go back into our control panel, and we'll pop into the People Manager, and we'll take a look at a search for members. We'll take a look at a member profile. Now, keep in mind, we don't have any of these settings configured here, but you're going to want to navigate to the member type, expiration, and join date section of that member's member profile. Now, this is where you end up seeing all of the member type options. You can change the member type assigned to that member, and you can also change their expiration date if you need to change or adjust that manually. And if there is an automatic renewal option for that member type, you'll have the option to turn that off for the member. Apart from that, the member isn't able to undo that action on their own. So those are our renewal options as far as our renewal and expiration settings that you can configure on your website. We've added an additional option to give your members the flexibility of opting into automatic renewal and automatic payment. And we've also added in that additional automatic renewal notice that you're able to send out to members ahead of time. We highly encourage you to review these options and see which one is best for your organization. There are a lot of them. And as we said before, these renewal options only need to be as complicated as you require them to be. If you really only have one member type that should auto renew and everyone is on board with auto renewals and your members seem to manage themselves fine, you don't need to go through the process of setting up a bunch of different member types, some getting notices and some not getting notices. Keep in mind, again, the system only needs to be as complex as you need it to be. It looks like we have a lot of questions. Devin, how are we doing on questions? And is there anything that I can go over or review for anyone?
Yeah, we've got a handful of questions. I think an important one would be to go over I know there's a lot of date terminology that happens, and there was some confusion around that, specifically as like the relationship between things like last renewal date, then their next expiration date, how that connects to their join date. All of these things can kind of get out of sync depending on how you have your renewal settings set up. So obviously, if you have rolling renewals, then your, expiration date changes year over year, especially if you renew after expiration. Whereas if everyone renews on the same date, your renewal date will always, or your expiration date will always stay the same, but your last renewal date might be slightly off. There's also a question about the membership types. So if a membership type is set to admin only, is that available to only administrators or does it include coordinators? It would include coordinators to a degree. So if you give a coordinator access to the membership type function, they would be able to set a membership type to be admin only. Likewise, if you give a coordinator access to the people manager, they would be able to change membership types to a membership type that is admin only. But if someone is a coordinator and they're joining, they would not be able to join and select, like if someone is if someone is renewing. So if you have a coordinator that is renewing, they would not be able to select an admin only membership type, as only a coordinator. We had an interesting question about getting reports on kind of expired members. It sounds like there's someone who has dropped members and they're wanting to report on, when those members were dropped. We don't currently track membership drop dates. We kind of dropped is kind of intended as a delete function. So if you're wanting to report on members and their expiration dates and things like that, you would want to leave them in the expired setting. You don't want to drop someone unless you are completely done with their information. So if you are dropping someone, that is someone who is never coming back to the organization, and you don't need to hold on to, you don't need them to show up in reports or anything like that. So that's why those dropped members aren't showing up. If you are, if you're using the like mass delete function or mass drop function for your members, I would usually, as a rule of thumb, kind of not mass delete some or mass drop memberships unless they've been expired for more than say like a year. If someone's been expired for 2 or more years, then you can more comfortably drop that member. Um, but if you're wanting to report and get data about expirations and how many expirations you had, 6 months ago, I would say, if you drop all of your expired members every single month, you're losing out on a lot of reportability on those members. And there was also a question about if there's a list of like what data is included in what reports. We don't currently have a list of like every single report and what data fields are in that report. Um, it's something that we have kind of talked about before, but we currently have, so many reports and are constantly making more that keeping up with a comprehensive list would be uh, difficult. It's definitely something that we're thinking about, but it's currently just on the wish list, not something we have just yet.
And to review the default options again, so the default options are really the options that you select. So the default options are going to be your baseline renewal happens on a specific date and time that, or excuse me, renewal happens when the member opts to renew their membership and that membership is not being auto renewed. So the default option is the member renews themselves or the administrator opts to renew that member. There is no automatic payment that is involved. The other option would be any one of the auto renew options. And those are those four auto renew options that we discussed. So your default option is kind of the member takes care of a lot of the renewal process on their own. There isn't anything automatic about it.
And Sam, I think I would have been answering a different question. Did we cover the proration option that we have for members expiring on the same date or renewing on the same date?
Right at the top. So for single date renewals, if you are talking about proration, so if you aren't offering a grace period and members are clamoring to join outside of your specific start date. So let's say you're not offering a grace period, your start date is January 1st, and someone wants to join in October or November of the year before. If you enable proration, your proration calculated on a daily basis is applied to the membership's total when they're joining in the middle of your membership cycle. And if you offer a grace period, the grace period is also baked into the proration. So if you offer a grace period of a month or 4 months and you want to enable proration, the proration occurs outside of the grace period.
Okay, and we had a question about the automatic renewal options and where those live. So the automatic renewal options are actually set up in the individual member types, not in the renewal schedule page. So if you go to your membership type options, that is where on any of your given membership types, you can select whether or not um, that membership type will allow automatic renewals. And there are, depending on how your organization is set up, there can be up to 4 options there. So on this demo site, there's only one option. It's just the default settings are renewals. But if you have um, a ClubExpress merchant account or a merchant account through Stripe, there might be different options. You can see up to these 4 different automatic renewal options there. Um, There was also a clarification earlier. So if your members are expired and you're wanting to report on, when members expired and did not renew, there are reports on that as well. You can find that report again in the control panel. I mentioned this in the chat, I believe, but in the control panel in the people tab, you can find reports, and in the membership info reports, there's member status by expiration date, and you can specify there that you are only looking for expired members, and that will sort that list by their expiration date. So that should give you all of your members, so you can see how many members have expired by certain timeframes, and you can even export that as, say, an Excel document, and sort it even further, break it into months if you wanted. There's a lot of things you can do with that. If you're looking for more detail than that, there are some other reports that you can control if you just want to see your expired members, but you could also um, try out the ad hoc reporting tool to get even more detail on your reports. I know that's an added cost function, but you should be able to cobble together, our canned reports, but with ad hoc reporting, you can make a report to your, exact specifications. So we have someone who said they don't see the 4 options. So as I mentioned, if you don't have the ClubExpress payment processor, you might be missing some of those automatic renewal options. So if you do have if you do have a ClubExpress payment processor and you're not seeing those options, you can reach out to our support teams, just support@clubexpress.com, and say, hey, something's missing. It might be a setting that we have to turn on behind the scenes, or it might just be a small bug that we can fix for you. So um, if you're not seeing options that you think you should see, that's the time when you should reach out to our support and see if they can't figure out what's going on. So we have someone who says the new members are enrolled July 1st, but they don't owe dues until August. Can you delay the notices um, if they are added in July? I don't know that there's a way to turn off notices for only certain people. You can turn off the notices entirely, temporarily. So you could say, hey, I don't want anyone to get renewal notices in the month of July. And so you could, turn that off entirely, or change your date structure. So you say, they only get renewal notices a certain number of days. You could kind of modify that to change the way the system works. And you can always go back and change that later. So if you turn it off temporarily, no one would get notices. And then you can, of course, turn that back on and people would start getting notices again. Someone asked if if membership types are changed during the year. So only administrators can change a member type outside of renewal. And it does not charge a fee. So a member cannot go into their profile and say, well, now I want to be, a gold level member, when I was a, silver level member. There's not a way for members to change their membership type on their own. Only administrators can do that. The other option would be for members to, renew their membership and choose a different membership type, at which time they would be, they would have to pay the fee for that membership. But there's not an option to, upgrade your membership from one type to another without renewing. On that topic, Sam, I may have been answering different questions when you talked about this, but did we cover the option to renew early?
We did not, but we certainly can. So if you give your members the option to renew or if you're notifying your members that they can renew their memberships early, they can renew them way outside of their renewal window. That's outside of the notices that they might be getting from you, whether those are coming 2 months out or 1 month out. Your members can visit their member profile. And in their member profile, in the membership summary, you've got all of their membership information on the left-hand side. If there are any additional members in their membership, that's where they can connect to their profiles as well. And all the way on the right-hand side, you have the option to renew your membership early, again, outside of the membership renewal window that may have been set up by the organization.
We have a handful of questions in our chat as well. So there's someone asking a question, can a member send payment to a local administrator to apply payment? Yes, it would have to be an administrator of your organization, but your admins have access to mark payments or create and submit payments for a member by using either the people manager or the money tab of the control panel has a outstanding charges page. But absolutely, they can send a check or cash, or they can pay, in person, however you want to accept that payment. It is possible for administrators to record those charges for a member. And then someone asked regarding lifetime members, is there going to be a lifetime membership option that does not prorate the dues? I don't think we currently have a plan to add a lifetime membership option. Our entire kind of backbone is built on the existence of an expiration date. And so there's not currently a plan for a membership that does not have an expiration date at all. That could change in the future, but for the time being, I don't think there's any plans to change that. I also saw a question earlier and I saw it repeated just again just now. There are a lot of people who would like their certain administrators to get a notice when someone has renewed. In the people options in the control panel, there is a setting to control when a membership director would get an email about members renewing. So you would want to make sure that that function is turned on. And once you've turned that function on, you would need to make sure that your membership director is configured in your titles page. So in your contact us and titles section in the control panel, that is where you can go and kind of make sure that you have someone set up to be the membership director. So if you have someone who's, is listed on your homepage as your membership chairman, they also need to be listed in your club contacts and club titles as the membership director and have the setting turned on in the people options to notify them about that. Once all three of those are configured, they should be getting emails anytime someone renews. Someone's saying they're not seeing the renew early box. They're saying if that hasn't been activated, you have to turn on the option to renew early. Sam, I believe that's in people options. I'm not sure where that setting lives off the top of my head. Members can renew early. So yeah, so it's in the people options. You have to switch that to yes. And then even then, once you've switched it to yes and save, you might have to log in or log out and log back in order to see that box pop up. So that's why that may not be there. Someone asked, is there a way for multiple people to be notified when someone joins or renews? You can actually set up a title to have what we would call a title email. So if you're using ClubExpress's email management, then you could set up multiple email addresses as a title. Keep in mind that anytime someone were to email that title, they would get all of those emails. Otherwise, there's not a way to set multiple people as the same role. The system would only send it to the first person holding that role. But you could create a a Club Express email that does have multiple emails. You can our help system on Club Express emailing, not the emailing module, but the system emails. Uh, what's it called? Sorry, I've got to pull up my control panel that I have open to remember the name.
Emailing accounts.
Emailing accounts. That's the term I was looking for. So in the communication tab of the control panel, there's an email accounts setup. And you can go there. I think we have probably some tutorial videos. And if not, we have our help system that can help you get email accounts set up. And you can set up an account that forwards one address to multiple addresses. And then you would just set that as your title email for multiple people to get notified about that. So we've got a question, and this is a question we see a lot, especially, I'm not sure if you're with a rowing club or not, the person that asked this, but there's people who want to set up rolling renewals, but they want to skip certain months out of the year without any sort of penalty. Um, we don't have currently an option for like a blackout. So, if you only have a 9-month active period and then you take 3 months off as your organization, so say you take the winter off as a part of your organization, we don't have a clean way to do that just yet. So you would have your members, at the end of that 9-month active period, the system does want them to renew. Otherwise, it would consider them expired for those 3 months. Part of that would be either you could change settings throughout the year. So you could set a reminder for yourself to just turn off renewal notices and turn off the ability for them to renew with just a few setting changes towards the end of your active period, and then re-enable that once your active period is starting back up. It does require currently a little bit of, admin manual labor. It should only take, once you kind of know what settings to turn on and off, should only take, 5 or 10 minutes to change those settings, twice a year. Not a huge hurdle, but we don't have an automatic way to say, hey, none of our members are active for this given period of time, at least not yet. That is something we're aware of. I know a lot of our rowing clubs are very eager for us to change something like that. Um, there are comments from people who are saying they're currently using or they have set up the ClubExpress payment processor or they're using Stripe. I believe if you're using the Stripe payment processor, or if you're one of our legacy users who's using an authorized.net payment processor, you should still have access to the automatic renewal options with payment. So both Stripe, the ClubExpress payment processor, and authorized.net users should have access to the automatic payment options. Again, if you have a credit card payment processor through ClubExpress or through Stripe or authorized.net and you're not seeing those automatic options, you might want to reach out to support. Just support@clubexpress.com is their email address, and just let them know you're having trouble seeing that. It might be something that they need to turn on behind the scenes. And I also saw on the same topic, I saw someone saying that they were having trouble getting approved for a Club Express merchant account and who they should reach out to for that. I would still just point you to support@clubexpress.com and they'll route you to the right person. Unfortunately, we in the training department don't have access to modify those kinds of things, but the support department does have the people who would be managing that for you. So that's where you would send that. So yeah, so we have someone who's saying that they use the third-party payment system. So if you're using a third-party payment processor, then the automatic payments are not an option. So it would have to be either manually done by a member. So a member would have to submit their own payment manually. They would not be able to pay automatically. They can still renew automatically, but it would just send them an email letting them know a charge is pending, and they would have to log into the website to submit that charge. So we had someone submit a question saying that their membership director is not getting the emails. Again, that is a situation where I would want to check that you have your titles and contacts all set up correctly and that your people options are set to send them those renewals. If they're not getting that email, I would check and make sure they're getting any emails. So if they're getting, if they're only not getting the notification emails about expired and renewed, then it's almost certainly, there's one setting that's slightly off or something like that. If they're getting no emails from Club Express, then that would be something to check with support about. Either way, you could have, you could contact support and have them check into why that person isn't getting those emails. It's probably either a setting or something with our email delivery. We've had someone ask if there's an option for Venmo, Zelle, or Square for payment. We don't currently accept Venmo, Zelle, Square, Cash App, PayPal. Or no, we do accept PayPal. Sorry, roll that back. We do accept PayPal. Um, but Venmo, Zelle, and Square are not currently payment processors that we work with. I don't know if we have plans to expand that. I know our relationship with Stripe, the payment processor, is pretty strong, so we're probably going to stick with that. So I don't know if there's any plans to expand to those other payment options. There is an option for when you're submitting a payment as an admin to choose separate system as a payment type. So if a member sends, funds directly to your organization's Zelle or PayPal, or sorry, I said PayPal again, Zelle or Venmo or Cash App account or something like that. If they send it directly that way, an admin can still record that as a separate system payment and mark down, like the transaction ID and how it was paid, but there is not a way for it to be paid straight through ClubExpress.
More questions that have come in. Can you prevent someone from renewing without payment? Um, Yes. So when memberships expire, and we talked about this when we set up what happens when a membership actually expires, you can prevent them from accessing member-only content. They're not able to advance on your site without renewing their membership, which includes completing payment. The membership is not renewed, and they're not an active member until they've completed payment, the same as when they sign up for your site. In addition to that, as we talked about, members cannot opt out later once they've opted into automatic renewals and payments. They'll need to either choose a different member type when they renew, or the administrator needs to access their profile and turn that off for them.
Um, I'm going to jump over a question and circle back to one other. Someone asked if there's a way to see trend data from ClubExpress, so number of members as of a certain date. There is. It's kind of a hidden little report. We don't keep track of like the numbers in the way you might be thinking, where we compare the dates to a certain time of year, but we do track membership history over time. So if you were to go to your control panel again in the people tab, again in the reports, and then still in that membership info reports, there is at the bottom of the list of membership info reports, there is a report called membership history. And that will show you all the way going back to when you joined ClubExpress. We'll keep track of it, through as long as you're with ClubExpress. It'll show you your number of active members. It'll actually also show you your non-members. It'll show you your secondary and tertiary members at the beginning of each month, going back to the beginning of your relationship with ClubExpress. So you can kind of, if you're looking for trends, uptrends or downtrends in membership, that should give you a pretty good view of that kind of information. And then speaking of sub members as well, someone said that they're having trouble with renewing secondary family members, and they're not sure that they've set up the settings correctly. They've got, if you have, say, a $35 um, single membership, but a $45 family membership where they can have one or two additional family members, the way you would want to set that up specifically would be to have two different membership types. You'd have an individual membership type that does not allow for secondary members at all, and you would set that to be $35. And then you would have your family membership, and you would set that as $45. And then in your secondary member settings, you would want to set that to be um, you can have a minimum of one secondary member, a maximum of two. And then you would set no fee for your secondary members. You would just set the primary fee to be $45. That means the price wouldn't change based on how many, be it one or two secondary members they have. It would just charge $45 for the family membership. And it would apply zero charge for the secondaries. That way it wouldn't matter whether or not they have, one or two secondary members. It's just a certain price for a family membership. Someone's asking to clarify. So currently, with this is something, we're aware of this limitation, but if you have someone who is set up to auto renew their membership and auto pay, There's only two ways to get out of the auto payment currently. That would be to either cancel your membership and sign up. I know, not ideal. The other way would just be to contact an administrator. Administrators can go in and turn off the automatic payment or automatic renewal for that member. But there is not a way for the member to opt out on their own at the very least, once they've set up for automatic payment. That is a limitation we are very aware of and keeping an eye on.
Another question that came through. When members renew, they have to go through many screens of information. Is there a way to change that so that the renew option appears first in this process? No, there isn't, to put it quickly and bluntly. We mentioned at the top of the hour, the session wasn't focused on the renewal and sign up wizard, but we did kind of talk about the option of members renewing themselves or administrators renewing members. So we highly recommend that you look up our new member sign up tutorial on our YouTube channel that'll walk you through setting up your membership sign up and renewal wizards. And it'll walk you through making those changes to perhaps maybe lessen the number of screens that your members have to go through.
Yeah, and to briefly comment on that, you can reduce the number of screens that someone sees at renewal without reducing the number of screens someone sees when they join. So if you have a lot of information that needs to get collected when they join, you can maintain that, but still reduce the amount of information they have to enter when they renew. So those two things can be separate. So you can reduce the renewal process, and then just have them upkeep that information by going to their profile to edit it instead of showing it to them every time they renew their membership. But do keep in mind that means that they won't get presented with the option to update it when they do renew. And back to the short and sweet answer of no, there's not an option to, allow someone to essentially skip those screens automatically. I don't want to visit those screens, but then have the option to see them if they want them. So it's an all or nothing in that way, but you can reduce the number of screens someone sees when they are renewing. Someone said, how do you switch the renewal options to be different than the new member? In that new member sign up wizard page, there's an entire column for what new members have to enter, and then there's an entirely separate column for what renewing members enter. So you can just select different options for whether a member is renewing or whether they're joining for the first time. So you can just check different boxes on that page, and it will change how that system appears. All right. It looks like we've got a couple repeated questions, but I think we're at the hour, Sam, if you want to start wrapping up.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance today, and thank you for your questions. We'll have a recording of the session available on our YouTube channel in a few days. And of course, you'll be able to catch recaps of all of our webinars on our YouTube channel. We highly encourage you to look out for our newsletter and check our calendar for upcoming webinars, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.